Hey students, so we are going over lab 4.4 today, which is called Number Cruncher. This lab actually I feel like is one of the ones where we start to get in sort of the practical application of a lot of these different things that we've been learning. It's very similar to what you would do in kind of a simple exercise in actual programming. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing that we need to do is basically create a custom snap reporter block called sum that takes in a list as an argument and reports the sum of all the numbers in the list. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say make a block. I'm doing that here in variables just because it makes sense to me, but you can create it wherever you'd like. We name the reporter, or we name the custom block called sum. And of course I want to give it a argument, and I'm going to give that input name as simple list, right? So we have this here now, and actually, you know what? I kind of want to rename list. I feel like since we really have a list as a block that's already set up, I kind of want to use something that's more unofficially named. That way we don't get them confused. So in this case, I'm going to name it numbers list. So after I name it numbers list, I click OK, and you can see that's changed right here. Basically what we want to do is take this numbers list as it's given to us and sum all the numbers inside of the list up. So we've seen this same thing before. I'm going to create a for loop, and the simple thing that we're basically doing is iterating through all these numbers and using sort of what I described as a shopping cart in earlier videos to sum them up. So I'm going to say for I of 1 to 10, and then I'm going to say I want to find the size of that list. So I'm going to use the size block, which I'm going to find here at some point. Let's see. We want, and I'm going to go crazy if I can't find it. See if it's in the operators. Oh no, wait. Should be size. It's going to be in here somewhere. Length of list right here. There we go. So I'm going to say take length of list, and we're basically going to iterate through it. I'm going to go to set right here. I'm going to drag this down underneath it. I need to set my shopping cart is the first thing I need to do. So right here, you can see I've already created the variable called sum. So I'm going to say, go ahead and say sum. I'm going to set sum to 0 to start out with, and then each iteration through, we're basically going to change that. So take that out, put sum inside. We're going to say set sum to sum, which I will grab out of variables right here, equal to, and then of course we want to find the item, which we're going to use I to find which item we want, because we're iterating using I, to of numbers list. So we're going to copy, duplicate, put right there, and then we're going to go to looks, and I'm going to say that, of course, because I want to know what the actual answer is, and I'm going to use sum. And that's how we do the first part. It's that easy. Hopefully I didn't go through that too fast, but what we want to do is we set the sum to 0. Again, that's our shopping cart. We want to keep it consistent every single time we start, and we need it to have something. We iterate for I equals 1, because we always start at 1, to length of numbers list, which is the list that we're going to give this script. And we say for that length, we're going to set sum to sum plus the item of numbers list, and then we're going to say sum. So if I click OK, we can see that sum block has been created. I'm going to drag it out right here. And then for the input for sum, I'm going to put numbers right here. I'm going to set right there. So you can see I have numbers, which I've already created, set to the list 10, 8, 25, 60, and 30. So if we click it, we can see the sum of that is 106. The next part we have that I'm going to go through is called average. It takes a list as an argument, and it does basically the same thing as we just did, but we're going to report it as an average. So the calculation is going to be slightly different. So we're going to start, and we're going to do something pretty smart here. So I'm going to click average. I'm going to create it. I'm going to do the same thing where I create a numbers list. Click OK. And then I'm going to click OK here first. I'm going to edit the block that I already created. And I'm basically going to not reinvent the wheel. So if I drag that out, I can then grab it when I click average. So again, to edit a custom block, we go over right here to the left, click edit. And now I have this right here. So I am going to drag this into here. And we're doing the same thing, except I need to create another variable, which I'm going to call average. And maybe a smarter way to do this in the future too is to kind of create a variable that you can all use in some of these where it's named the same thing. You can name it shopping cart if you want. But instead of setting sum to 0, I'm going to set average to 0 because we want to instantiate it with a standard value each time. I'm going to change sum right here to average, and then I'm going to take this right here. Actually, you know what? We want to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to duplicate this, drag that out because I only want the set block right here. I'm going to take both the sum and the average. I'm going to say 0, 0. We actually want sum to be the exact same thing, right? This is all the same. What we're going to do instead is we're going to use the set block one more time. Put that right there. Change it to average, right? So what I'm going to do here is we set sum and average to 0. We're iterating through the length of the numbers list and we're adding it up. And then as you should know from math, the average of a set of numbers is simply the sum divided by the number of items in the list. So we're going to say set average to, and I'm going to go operators to divide. I want to do the division of the sum, which we've so gratefully done right there. I'm going to drag that out. Go to variables. I'm going to find the length of a list. That's going to give me the number of items inside of the list, and then set that to the length of numbers list. So now that average, we're going to go ahead and drag average right into the say right there, is going to be equal to sum, which we're calculating already, divided by length of numbers list, say average for 2 seconds. I'm going to click OK. Drag average out right here. And actually, I'm going to duplicate this, make my life slightly easier, and then have average input numbers. So if we go ahead and click it, we can see it gives us that average. Now, one thing I do want to note is there is an even easier way possibly to do this that I didn't even think about until right now is you already have a sum function. You could simply take that and just say, hey, if it's the same list, you know, call the sum function and then simply give it that input that we're getting to average and then divide it by the number of items. The way I did it is basically by assuming that it didn't really have anything else to start off with. It didn't have another custom function to build off of. But with that being said, please tune in for the second part of Lab 4.4.